to the November meeting of PARC. I'd like to welcome the public and open the meeting for comment. If anybody is here who'd like to make a comment. Okay, if not, we'll move on. Everybody received a copy of the minutes, along with your other board correspondence.
Move to approve.
Motion by Gary to approve. Seconded by Marion. Any discussion, corrections, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Chairman's report, really not much of one, only that I would like to comment that I think that I know that the public forum was a success. I was not able to be there personally, but I know from my people I've talked to who were there, and lots of positive comments from people in the public, it definitely went off extremely well, and there was very good feedback, and I think we need to continue doing these. It was well worth doing, and I think the move to do it out at Howard Johnson's, although drawing a little bit of criticism, was still good and well worth doing, and I think that's a positive thing as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Berry.
We'll start you off easy today. These are
Passport.
yeah, it looks like a passport. Get somebody from staff to just hand these out. These are PARC's newest marketing literature. We used Sachs Communications and abused Denny Doyle, who helped us put this thing together. I hope you like it. It's directed toward our neighbors to the north, obviously. And we're using that along with the Chamber of Commerce video at a trade show out in Nova Scotia as we speak. John Fowler, aviation consultant, and Michael Sherman are out there now. And so I thought you'd like to have a advanced copy of that. They're hot off the press late Friday afternoon. So we don't have an awful lot of formal business today. A couple of things. First of all, when you're ready for action, a resolution regarding the appointment of an assistant secretary to the corporation, which in this case would be Jackie. And the reason for that is that the secretary of the corporation, there's a copy for each of you there, is not always available for signatures on a variety of documents. So when you get to the action point, if you could get that on your list, I'd like you to take a look at that. It's fairly perfunctory. Also, the cafeteria plan that we have in effect here for our personnel has to be amended, and to do that we need a corporate resolution. So that'll be on your action item. And again, while I'm talking incessantly about some other subjects, you may want to review that quick and really simple resolution. And finally, the attorneys for the nice folks at Bombardier have asked for a resolution from the board regarding their sublease. You may recall we are leasing them land for their test track facility and also for a portion of the base supply building. And as is the case, sometimes the attorney for the other side likes to see a resolution authorizing the CEO to enter into the lease. And what this does is, and for some reason I didn't make extra copies, but it just says the President and Secretary of the Corporation may execute and deliver said sublease agreement and other documentation as being necessary. And I'll just pass that around if you'd like to see. That's similar to the ones we signed in the past for a variety of tenants. So if you can put that on your list also for action, I would appreciate it. A couple of other quick things. We have more interviews coming up later this month on November 19th and again on November 25th with candidates for the Executive Vice President spot. An executive session. If you'd like to know more about the people who we're interviewing and who we've already interviewed, we're prepared to have a discussion on that. But because that is a personnel matter, I would reserve that, and I will need time for an executive session for that. Plus an executive session on one of our prospective tenants. I think that's it for the executive session. I want to remind you also that there is a forum planned by the City of Plattsburgh on Thursday of this week, November 20th at 6:45. It was announced in the paper. You're all encouraged to attend that. And also, although it's not yet been confirmed, I don't believe, on November 24th, we have at least got penciled in a visit by Congressman McHugh and possibly a high-ranking official from the Department of Defense, or at least the United States Air Force, to formally announce the record of decision, which by the time they get here will be on every graffitied wall in the city, I suppose. But they would like to make a formal announcement, and they've tentatively penciled in on November 24th, and we'll get back to you as soon as we are given a time. Also, I think it was Gary who had suggested, it was a great suggestion, that we conduct briefings for all of the newly elected officials and the successful incumbents on not only what's been happening out here at PARC, but specifically on the move to authority status. And we have set up a choice of 2 different briefings for these individuals, one on November 20th at 3 o'clock, if any of you would like to attend, and another one on November 26th at 1 o'clock. The invitations have already gone out, offering both these newly elected officials and the successful incumbents an opportunity to attend either of these briefings. Again, November 20th at 3, November 26th at 1. But the letter also says that if they can't make either of those, that I would be pleased to make myself available for a private briefing if their schedule doesn't permit one with the rest of the gang. Now, Gary, I know at one point you had suggested all of the elected officials in the county, but we've started to make it manageable. We've started simply with the Clinton County legislative members, the City of Plattsburgh elected officials, and the Town of Plattsburgh elected officials, which is a handful all by itself. And then hopefully we can expand beyond that depending on how these 2 go. And the last thing, you mentioned the public forum, Randy. I too think it went very, very well, and except for about 30 seconds. And I had a chance to meet with Councilor-elect Shirley O'Connell afterwards, and actually I think we're pretty close to an agreement personally on the subject of zoning. But I want to credit Shirley for giving us what I think is a pretty good idea. She suggested that possibly the authority might be more palatable to people if it had a sunset provision on it. For example, she said maybe 25 or 30 years from now it should automatically expire and then have to come up for renewal, if you will, or recreation. And unless there's a serious objection to the board, or by the board, I'd like to consider putting that in our first draft that we circulate. If it's legal, and I think it is, it may give a lot of people a great deal of comfort that this authority is not going to be an uncontrollable monster at some point down the road. As I said, Shirley suggested it that night. I think it's a great idea, and I thank her for it. And maybe we'll put that in there. Good idea. The other thing, I'm sorry. You? Sure.
If in the sunset provision, would it mean that we would then have to go back all the way as far as the legislature to be re-voted back in?
I honestly don't know how that works. I don't know if it comes up for renewal, if it has to be approved. We were going to start exploring sunset provisions. My guess is there aren't too many of them running around in authorities, but we can explore it. As a principle, though, I didn't think it was a bad idea.
What about the FAA?
Right, that's the only problem I can foresee.
Yep.
We have to have something in place to run the airport, so
Yep.
we'd have to look at that aspect.
It'd have to be long enough, too, so that any bonds that were issued, I mean, any authority goes, at least for the length of its bonds, and so there's a lot of legal implications there, too. But I'd like permission at least to go ahead and pursue that and check it out a little bit further. We don't have language in it.
Put the maximum provision in there that we legally can, that allows the community to have a chance at that point to try to redefine the authority. If there's some feeling at that point it should be different, whatever that leeway is.
Sorry. Let me do some more research on that for you. There may be a problem with the FAA, I don't know.
The feds now do this with almost everything. They sunset almost everything.
The federals?
Congress does. That's to make it come back to Congress. So
Yeah.
the federal level, when they do that, it has to go.
Have to go back
That's
for
not- So
reauthorization
we'll
or
have to come
something.
back, potentially come back to the legislature.
Yeah. We can check it out. The other thing, Gary had suggested I take a look at the remaining issues, so to speak. As you might remember, back in February, the city had issued a series of terms and conditions for their approval of the authority. And Gary had suggested we take a look at what's left on that list. And I spent some time with this over the weekend, and I think that in the spirit of cooperation and goodwill, I suspect that we're going to find that most, if not all, of these remaining issues we are probably in agreement with on principle, if we're willing to compromise a little bit. And let me just summarize these very quickly. As you know, the lakefront was an issue that's essentially been resolved. The housing was an issue that has also been essentially resolved. There is a stipulation in here, number 3, that the mayor has given us, saying that they would like to make sure that their access to the Oval continues indefinitely. I have no problem with that personally. There's a stipulation in here that says the authority would be subject to the zoning code. Again, I have no problem with that as long as everybody recognizes that the base reuse plan by federal statute must have primacy. But as I said the other night in the public forum, if anything we contemplate out here is not in compliance with the base reuse plan, then let's allow each of the municipalities' zoning laws to take effect. He, in his demand number 5, he wants payment in lieu of tax agreements with all of the jurisdictions. I agree. There should be one for each of the jurisdictions. I have no problem with that. It also stipulates here that the powers of condemnation, if any, that would be given to the authority would be subject to the relevant taxing jurisdiction. I have no problem with that. The demand number 7, or request number 7, says that the city, town, or the county should not be prohibited from becoming direct recipients of land out here. I have no problem with that either. We were contemplating anything in this legislation that would prohibit that. It also...
In fact, we built in the option on the basis the ROD has stated that if they want.
Exactly.
If they want to step forward, they can.
Just the opposite. Another request here is that there should be some sort of prohibition against Parks management employees or its contracted management employees from engaging or participating in partisan political activity. I assume we're looking at something similar to the Hatch Act. Again, and this may shock some of you, I have no problem with that. Number 10 was that PARC make itself subject to both the Open Meetings Law and the Freedom of Information Act. We never had a problem with that, and despite legal advice to the contrary, this board has voluntarily subjected itself to both FOIL and the Freedom of Open Meetings Law. And then the second to the last one, the authority shall incorporate all of the conflict of interest provisions contained in the New York State Public Offices Law. Now, I have not read that law, but whatever it is, if it's state law, I have no problem with complying with that either. Conflict of interest provisions.
When you become a state authority, those things are
Yeah.
going to be automatic.
So there's 10 of the 11 on the list, and I have no problem with any of them. I don't think the board will have a problem. The only one that's left, and I would agree with it if I had the city and the town and the county here with me, he would like to change the makeup of the board so that there would be 25% of the board would come from the city, 25% would come from the town, 25% would come from the county. Well, I think that in deference to the county and the town, you have to listen to them too and see what they want to do. But I think as a matter of principle, what's being accomplished here is that as much local control be left with the authority, and we've all agreed to that. Now, how you work the numbers, I don't know. Maybe it'll come out 25%, maybe it'll come out 20%, because I'm sure when you send this bill through Albany, the governor's going to have an appointment, the state senate, well, the state assembly. So that, to me, needs to be discussed. My point is this. We are actually, I think, in principle, in agreement with all of these things. And there's no reason, in my opinion, that we cannot, before the end of the month, put together a piece of draft legislation, even a sample pilot agreement, and a sidebar agreement if one's necessary, and I think it is, to take care of all these things that cannot be done in the state legislation. And get this out to all the people concerned, because what's left, frankly, now is just the details. There are no outstanding issues between this board and the city of Plattsburgh that prohibit us from going forward. And I thank you, because when I looked at the list, I thought there'd be a lot left, and there really isn't. There's very little left.
In fact, I'll take it a step further than that. I think we held a forum last week. Through Wiry and other media, it was public was broadly encouraged. We had 200 people there. I didn't hear a negative comment about forming an authority from a single person in that room. In fact, if there was a clear and resounding message from the public expressed in that room that night, it was everybody, park, city, town, county, state, get past the details and get this thing in place, get it done. And I think the best thing we could do here today to reflect the fact that we listened and that we're being responsive to what the community said on this, would be in principle to accept all of these conditions and convey that back to the city in the spirit of saying, let's get past these details, and let's start, or really what I'm saying, let's start talking about the details. We agree on all these principles. There's no disagreement in principle on any of these points. Let's get into the meetings and let's get the job done. That's what the community said they want us all to do.
I agree.
I think so too.
I agree.
I think that it's important that the attorney for PARC and the attorney for the city get together and make sure that we are comparing apples with apples and not apples with oranges in interpretation of what the issues really mean. I'd be very happy to vote in favor of our approval to take these issues to the next step. But you and I chatted not too long ago, Gary, about perhaps the details of the statements to make sure that we are proceeding where we should be proceeding.
Yeah.
And maybe a motion is appropriate right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll put it in the form of a motion that we're agreeing to all of these points in principle. There is no disagreement. There's no need to further discuss through the media or otherwise any of these as a principle. Let's get the parties, the county, the town, the city, PARC in its role together, and let's work out the details of these. Let's do what the community said to do, work out the details and get the job done.
Yeah, I think Gil's right. We need the actual language. At this point, we've got to start crafting some words together. We have a rough draft running around now, and that the devil's in the details, as they say sometimes. But I'm fairly confident that once all the parties see the actual legislation, we get the lawyers working on it. I don't think there's anything here that's really irresolvable. But we've got to get moving.
Community
The only
spoken.
thing against the fact is that we call the state, and, I mean, with all the attorneys they got down there, and get some of their ideas on it, so when we put it together, when we throw it down there, it's not gonna be thrown
They're
back.
gonna have to be engaged, so we're not doing something they can't do.
The
That's what
first
I'm
draft
saying, so
has
that's
to be
what I would
distributed
think.
to everybody. I think the town attorney's going to want to look at it, the city attorney, the county attorney. I think that the governor's legal staff's going to want to look at it. I'm sure that the Senate and the Assembly, the senators already told me that there are people down there that want to see this. So we'll take our first shot at it. We'll let everybody come back and say, well, this is not right, or this has to be changed, whatever it is. But that's how you get this thing.
That could take 9 months by the time.
Mark,
Say that.
so your next step is to have our attorney communicate with the city
Well, we need a
attorney?
draft. We're going to put the draft together, we'll hand it out, and then I think that's what we need is a bunch of
Have
meetings.
the attorneys put it legally and then throw it back.
It's really gonna have to be all the parties too, because on most of these points, you can't independently have a city approach, town approach, and a county approach. It's a authority, and there's gonna have to be some consensus amongst all the parties, and I suggest that's the next step.
I think PARC will be the conduit. We're going to get the feedback from everybody, and we'll just keep reworking.
When you talk about things like how's the board gonna be set up and so on, everybody, all the parties at the table have gotta come to a consensus on that.
And I think people need to realize that this is a draft, and we're not trying to tell the county or the town what they're going to be doing.
No.
No, this is
And that's
just
the
a
next
draft.
step to communicate those. I think there were 2 issues that had the participation of the county and the town in, that they've got to become a party to.
Well, what your motion says is that we accept in principle all of these things in the list, and then I assume that my directive will be to get these drafts that enunciate these principles and the things that other things that we've talked about, get the draft out, and we'll get the skill set.
Is working documents to be discussed at
documents.
meetings, not.
Okay.
Okay, and you second that, Gil?
Yes.
Okay, Jackie, you got that? Any other further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Very good. Anything else, Mark?
I don't know, I feel like we just finished the Paris peace talks here.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the shape of the table.
That's right.
We hope.
Doesn't take us
We
long.
hope.
Doesn't take us long. Yeah, I forgot an announcement. We have a press conference having to do with our air show on Tuesday, November 25th. So that's, is that later this week?
Next week.
Next week, at 3:30 in the afternoon. And it'll be a combination of PARC offices and the flight line. And I think we're going to have a mini air show that day, so I hope you all can make it.
3:30.
Marion's going to be piloting an old World War II Ace.
Ryan's gonna be in the sunshine state,
Yes,
sorry.
yes, we know. 27. And I'll remind you that I do need executive session to talk about our recruitment efforts for number 2 and a pending real estate transaction.
The press conference of the 25th starts here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 3:30.
don't run it in the dark.
Okay, anybody have any questions about the different reports you received from marketing, special projects, finance administration, buildings and grounds, special events?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even reference those. They do such a good job, I don't worry about it.
Any questions? Anybody? You had a chance, you received them in your packet and had a chance to look them over. Any committee reports? I don't believe there are, but if there are, speak up. Any old business? Okay, I'll move into new business. We have a resolution. The first one you have is was passed out, creating an assistant secretary to give us coverage when we don't have a secretary present. Motion by Gil,
I'll second it.
seconded by Marion. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. The second resolution you have is a amendment to the cafeteria plan. Again, it's been passed out to you. Mark?
Yes.
I have a question on this one. Is this because of a change in IRS rules or what?
The amendment you mean to the cafeteria plan?
Mm-hmm.
No. Who can explain that? Jackie?
Is that on you, eh, Jackie?
Actually, Rocky Hartfield's the expert. My understanding is that we're adding another choice for the workers, and another choice requires a formal amendment to the plan. It's a lot of work for very little result, but there's no extra cost for the additional choice. In fact, many of our employees will benefit. The insurance carrier recommended it, and
I think it's because
our
we're
human
adding
resource.
another health plan.
Right.
HMO plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Sorry, I just had to have my coffee.
Partners.
Not a problem.
The name on Jerry's.
I just had to have a question. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Gary, second by
I'll second it.
Marion. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. And the third resolution is a formal resolution to offering the CEO to enter into a lease with Bombardier for the test track and their rental of the
Base supply.
base supply building, excuse me. Do I have a motion on that? Bill, make the motion. Second?
Yes.
Second by Peter. Any questions or discussion?
How many years is that lease gonna be, Mark?
The test track lease is for, I had a lease summary at the last meeting, I'm doing this from memory now. It was 20 years plus a 10-year renewal. The base supply building, however, is only for 2 years.
Just trying to-
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Any other resolutions?
Nope.
No? Okay. I'd like to open the meeting back up to public comment. Does anybody here would like to ask a question or make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Hope Courier. I'm an appointee for the town of Plattsburgh, and I'd just like to say that I appreciate the fact that we have received for the first time the minutes for your meeting, the September minutes in our packet last month, so I do appreciate that. But I would like you to consider possibly giving us the minutes for this meeting prior to the December meeting. In the event that there's any comment that we might make, it would be a little more expedient for us to do that at the December meeting rather than the January meeting.
While you're up, Guy kind of made a similar request, and what Jackie was telling me is that because the minutes haven't been approved, we're apparently somehow prohibited from distributing them to the public at large. On the other hand, it occurred to me that if we stamp them draft, does that get around the law?
Yeah.
Or do we not? Mark, can we do
As long as
that?
we're stamping draft.
So in other words, what they approved today, if we just stamp draft on every single page and send them to anybody who wanted them, we're not in any way
Yeah.
restricting
I
ourselves, are
think,
we?
I don't know that we need to send them to everybody who gets the notice, but certainly we would want to send them to the.
To the members of the corporation.
Members of the corporation.
Would that do for you?
That's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be done.
No problem. Thank you.
Your headache now.
Any other questions, comment? Yes, Ken?
I'd like to commend the PARC board for the actions they've taken this morning. I think it's a direct result of the meeting we had the other night and the previous meeting. I think it speaks well to involve the public. I think when you do involve the public, you get support, and I think PARC needs the support of the public. I hope that you continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken.
And Ken, back to you. I'd like to commend you because you are one of our most faithful attendees, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions, comment, discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to go to executive
Motion to go
session?
into executive session.
Made by Gary.
Personnel matters.
I'll second it.
Second by Marion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
After
10-minute
we get
break.
coffee.
Yeah, I beat the rush.